We're going to start our project with the scene painting project on the gridding and enlarging exercise. What you have here, you'll find a handout within the handout section of the gridding and enlarging module, or you should also be able to print this off of the assignment as well, gridding and enlarging exercise. So what you'll have is an image of a cornice, which is the moldings and all the little ins and outs of a piece of architecture, and then a capital and column. All right, the areas in between here and are the background, where the areas inside all this is the architecture. Right, so I've given you the image. You now need to be able to translate this from we'll just call this a scale drawing to your Bristol board. Right, so we're not going to use an actual scale. We're just going to scale within proportion. We're not going to scale to an actual measurement here. What that means is we're going to just take one measurement, a grid of 1 inch, and then enlarge it to a larger grid. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to extend our extra lines off of the page. So what I like to do with this particular exercise is go to every line. We're going to ignore this border, but we're going to take our line and we're going to extend it off the page. All right, so make your way down, all the way down the drawing, extend every line. Start getting used to drawing. This is just part of it. So pretty easy. I'm just using a ruler and I'm going to extend all of these lines off the page. Make sure that you're in line with the existing line here. The reason we're going to do that is that when you enlarge this drawing and you put it on your Bristol board, a cornice doesn't just stop. It actually goes off the page, and the idea is that this cornice extends on down the world. You know, it goes and has a mirrored side on the other side and another capital on the other side. So we're going to extend this all the way down. All right, so just take the time to do each of these. I'm using a pen here. That way, it's in ink, like the printing ink. Where what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to a colored pencil. You can use a regular pencil to delineate, so you don't get confused between what is a line here versus what is your grid. Mind you, the grid is temporary. The grid is nothing more than a guide to guide you for placement. All right, so that's the bottom of this. Now I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the column and I'm going to extend the column further out. All right, so there's a column. It goes off the page, and the other side of the column, it goes off the page. All right, so that's the first step. I've extended all my lines to go off the page. All right, the next step we want to do is we want to create our grid. Now I've decided that we're just going to create a 1 inch by 1 inch grid. That means that the squares, each square is 1 inch wide and 1 inch tall. So let's go to our regular measurements, your regular ruler that you've always used before. We're not going to worry about any scales. So I'm going to put the 0 on the edge of the paper, starting on this side. And it doesn't matter where, just on the lower half of the page, I'm going to align this up, and I'm going to make a little mark at every inch mark. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And you'll see there's a little extra. We can't go to 9 because our page is only 8 1/2 inches wide. I'm going to move my ruler up high on the upper part of the drawing. And I'm going to do the same thing, starting from the same edge. We don't swap it. So I started from this edge in. I'm going to start from up here, up at the 0 on the edge of the page. And I'm going to do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. All right. So now I've got 2 dots that I can now connect, and they're all evenly spaced at 1 inch apart. Now you can either take a pencil I'm going to use a colored pencil for this exercise so that you can really see the difference in what I'm doing. So in this case, I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to line those the first two dots. We start at the top, all the way at the top, and draw the line all the way through to the bottom. All right, see that? I've got a nice little turquoise line that goes all the way. And I'm going to make my way across this drawing, connecting the dots. Right, start at the top, make your way all the way through. So see, I've got 1 inch in, 2 inches in, and I'm going to continue my grid all the way across. All right, connect the dots, double check that we're spaced correctly so we don't get any weird, janky lines. We want it to be parallel, every line to be parallel, and to be as accurate as possible, right? If you find that one of your lines is crooked, you probably connected the wrong lines, the wrong dots. So go back and correct that before you move on. All right, got a couple more. All right, once you've completed that, look, that last one's a little bit off for me. I didn't quite get it. It's right along that line. So I'm going to correct that real quick. There we go. So what you should have is you should now have an equal distant lines all the way going across your page, starting on the right side of your page, moving left, and you'll have a little sliver, a 1/2 inch wide sliver on this side, and that's okay. We're going to leave that alone. All right. So that's step 1. Step 2 is to create all of the horizontal lines. Now, because you're going from 8.5 inches to 11 by 17, that's not an accurate step up. Okay, it's not correct. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this easy by starting in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my page here. I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to lay it on my page. And I see that this says 11 inches. I want to find the center of this page. So what's half of 11? That would be 5.5. So I go to 5 and I go over the half mark. Remember, that's the second longest line. Remember, the first long line is 1/4. The second long line is 1/2. So I'm going to make a little dot right there. And just like I did before, I move up the page. I line the 0 here. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to find 5.5. Make sure that it's halfway. There's 5, there's 6, we're halfway. Not this one, not that one, center. Double check the bottom one if you haven't. So remember that rule, measure twice, cut once. In this case, it's measure twice, draw once, all right? So this, I double check 0 to 5, there's 6, there's my halfway mark right there, and there's my center. What I'm gonna do is the same thing. I'm gonna line these 2 dots, and I take my little blue pencil, and I'm gonna connect the dots. It's kind of nice because look, I've got a line that's right along that center line. Now that I have it split in half, I'm going to measure out in 1 inch increments in both directions. That way my drawing is center. And whenever I go to this, I'll do the same thing. So the drawing will be center in the page. So we'll go back to our 1 inch marks and we can line our 0 up on the center line. And the same thing, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we do the same thing on the other side. I'm putting the 5 this time center. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then I come down to the bottom here and I line the 0 on the center line. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to put the 5 here just because it's easier for me. And I'm just, again, each 1 inch mark. So this is like 4, 3, 2, and 1. Oh, I got to go to 0, don't I? So let me line that 1 up with there, and there's 0. All right. And so now I just connect the dots. So I'm going to switch over to my turquoise pencil just because I won't like it. And again, do the same thing. Connect the dots. Connect the dots. Connect the dots. And you'll see as you're moving your way up, you're going to end up with all of these 1 inch square grid. Okay. Double check, like I said before, that you don't get a wonky line. You know, you don't want a line that's all crooked. That is not helpful and will mess up and your drawing, make it distorted. So we want to make sure that we're nice and square. If you've measured correctly, every line was on a 1 inch mark, you should have no problem with that. If you got off anywhere, measured an 1 1/8 or 1 1/4, then what will happen is your line will be inaccurate and your drawing will become inaccurate. You'll end up with a very strange looking cornice and column. All right, there we go. Okay, so I've completed my initial grid. So the next step is we now need to essentially play Battleship here. If you've ever played the game Battleship, you know that there are coordinates in the game. Well, the same kind of idea works really well when you are working with a grid here. So what I like to do is I like to find the top row and I like to do letters. So I assign each column a letter. So I'm going to say this little top corner here is A. The next one is B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I. And then starting from the one that says A, I start using numbers. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and this little one at the bottom is 12. Why do we do that? All right. Well, if I'm looking at, say, this little square right here, this, I'm going to just mark it, even though I normally don't do this. There and there. That square I can identify as F7. This one would be F7. Why is that important? Well, when we go to creating our grid on our Bristol board, we're going to create an identical version of this, just scaled up, and there will be a corresponding F7 on that drawing that will allow us to take all the little information that's inside F7 square and translate that in a larger scale onto the Bristol board. Okay, so this concludes the first part of our assignment. And what you'll have is 1 inch by 1 inch square. So I should be able to easily go with my ruler and measure any square. And it should be 1 inch wide and 1 inch tall. Every single square is square, nice and square angles. I've got my measurements or my coordinates laid out. So I've got my A through I and my 1 through 12. A1 is this little square in the corner. You know, A2 is the one below it. You will have a little 1/2 inch grid here and a 1/2 inch grid on the bottom and a 1/2 inch grid on the top. All right. Once you're finished this, move on to the next video on creating the next part of the grid.